and is now living in Baltimore. And she was the first person that I contacted earlier today when I found out about this. Tamara, so as we've talked about, this is a major piece of
Yep.
Baltimore. It is an historic bridge. It is also part of this incredible situation, this transportation network
hmm
that you have around Baltimore. Give us a better sense of just how big that network is.
Well, we have so many things. I mean, Domino sugar is huge here. We export Domino sugar. That's how it leaves Baltimore via ships. Um, it's We export cars. We export so many things that it's going to be just to try to reconfigure how this is all going to be reestablished is mind-boggling. And I think right now, people, I mean, just I was out walking my dogs earlier today, and everybody kind of looks like they're in a little bit of a state of shock right now. They can't, nobody can believe what they saw on that video. In 1,000 years, nobody would have imagined that something like this could have happened. Um,
Tamara Nelson Falstich is joining us. She's a Baltimore resident, and so everyone is in shock and stunned. I can imagine. I mean, we haven't seen something of this scale since a bridge collapse in Minnesota. You
yep.
go back to the San Francisco earthquake decades ago when the Oakland Bay Bridge collapsed. And when you see something like this, it boggles, quite as you said, boggles your mind.
It really does, and it is. You know, like we just had. You were playing the press conference. Our governor was there, and I think for everybody that heard the news this morning and was notified of the news, you just had to sit there for a second and say, "Wait, what happened?
Yeah.
What just? How did this happen?" And there, as the FBI said, it looks like at this point that there's no credible evidence that any kind of a terrorist act was involved. People have been replaying that video and, little pointers going to everything. And it looks like the ship lost power at least twice, possibly, is what they're saying. Um, and was kind of in the dark there for a while. And one of our news reports said that earlier, this particular vessel had a similar incident with no catastrophe. They ran into something else several years ago. Not here in this country. I believe they said Amsterdam, I think, or Denmark. I can't remember, but um, there's just so much that we don't know right now, and that is where everybody's just kind of walking around, just shaking their heads.
During the press conference earlier, there was some good news, if there is any good news, that there are 7 people that are unaccounted for,
Yeah.
and that most of those people, if not all of them, are on a bridge crew that was
Right.
doing concrete work
Yep.
on the bridge itself. And when you start thinking about that, it's in the middle of the night. That's when
hmm
that work has to happen because this bridge is so important to the Baltimore commute.
Yeah, and one person, there is one so far, just one confirmed. There's somebody who is at shock trauma, Baltimore shock trauma unit right now in serious condition. There was another person that was not injured, thank goodness. And then there is the ongoing, search and rescue that's going on in the waters around that wreckage right now. So that's about all we know at this point, and it is. It's just to be sitting here and even talking to you about this is still unreal to me, that this is something I am discussing with somebody, because the shock of it is just really, really overwhelming.
I can imagine. Now we talked earlier, and you mentioned that you don't necessarily use the Francis Scott Key Bridge very often. That you
I
use,
have been on it, but yes, it's not one of my. I mostly use the tunnels. I use either the Fort McHenry tunnel or the Harbor tunnel, or kind of my ways to get across town and around town. Um, yeah, and when you get on the Key Bridge, it's a spectacular view. When you were up there, it's absolutely gorgeous. And many of my friends that live in downtown Baltimore, either in their high-rise condos or they work downtown, you know, they're showing they once had beautiful views of the Key Bridge from their windows, and now it's a whole new landscape. It's just that it's not there anymore
certainly
is just unreal.
certainly twisted and submerged steel as wreckage as they look out
Yep.
their windows today. Tamara, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day. I know you're a busy person in Baltimore. I want to thank you for spending some time with us here on the Wells Report, and by all means, remain safe. I was very happy to hear that you were not involved in any of that, and I certainly hope that none of your friends were either. And God bless you
Thank
and
you,
your
John David.
endeavors.
Thank you, John David. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much. That's
Oh.
Tamara Nelson joining us here on the Wells Report. And yeah, this is a stunning development. It is something that we think about only in the deep recesses of fear. And that's one of those things that you just truly can't believe what you're dealing with as you deal with it. So far, the press conference has come to an end. We want to join WBAL television. They are also covering this story. So let me see what they've got going here as they go down to the waterfront itself for a live report.
Here in the community. So this morning they are waking up, of course, and coming out to the dock to see the devastation and what is left of the bridge. I'm joined now with Kaylee and Greg Jakovics, who live in this community. So tell me, how did you guys first find out about this morning? Did you hear anything last night?
So we didn't hear anything, but tons of our neighbors had heard something, what they thought was an explosion or something at the factory over there. They weren't really sure. It wasn't until maybe around 5 a.m. or so that, I woke up to him saying, the Key Bridge is down. And I woke up like, that's not true. That's not real news, So we came here around 6 a.m. and, unfortunately it's true. And that, it's down and pretty devastating to the community.
What do you think, standing here looking at what is left of the bridge sticking out of the water?
Yeah, it seems unreal, that's for sure. It's a view that our community sees every day, from the homes over here to this boardwalk. We get to see it, and it's truly devastating.
Now, Greg, you had said that, your mind was racing kind of when you heard about this. Tell me what your concerns were when you first heard the bridge was down.
Sure. Were you first concerned about like vehicles going across the bridge, and then you hear that there's workers on the bridge, and is anybody hurt? And then you're also concerned about the traffic in the area, and then the shipping that comes into the inner harbor, and your mind just goes through all these different scenarios that's about to come, because this is one of the major three arteries that go into south from here. So it's, with the bridge gone, you just don't know. And then, people that come all over the world to visit Dundalk too. So
yeah, that is the live coverage from WBAL television, channel 11 in Baltimore. This is the Wells Report as we all recoil at the loss of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And we will have more of this report coming up in a moment. This is the Wells Report.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore was hit by a container ship some 1,000 feet long or more, and the bridge has collapsed. There were cars on the bridge. It happened in the middle of the night, thank goodness. Had it happened during rush hour, this would have been a major, major disaster. There were bridge crews working on the bridge at the time. Some 6 of them are missing. And this is how we found out about it from CBS News, their special report from last night in the wee hours of the morning.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Tony DeCopel in New York, and we are coming on your air at this early hour with breaking news. A catastrophic bridge collapse in Baltimore, and the Maryland governor has just declared a state of emergency. Let's go to the pictures because they are dramatic indeed. This is the Francis Scott Key Bridge, stitching together 2 major counties in Maryland, and that is a cargo ship colliding with a pillar. This is 1:30 a.m. local time. That cargo ship, the Dolly, hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge and sent the principal section, the main stretch of this bridge, into the water. Rescue boats are now on the scene, and we are hearing from the Baltimore Fire Department that up to 20 people may be in the water. They're calling it a, quote, developing mass casualty event. The good news at this hour is the Coast Guard says they do not have confirmed casualties at this time. A search is underway. The Francis Scott Key Bridge, as I mentioned, connects two major counties in the Baltimore area. It is more than 1.5 miles long. It's been open for nearly 50 years, one of the longer bridges in this country, and a major artery for shipping and for passengers, for vehicles. Tens of thousands a day cross this bridge. Let's take a live look at the rescue efforts. The sun has yet to come up there in Baltimore, but you can see the ship there, the shadow of it anyway, and the stricken bridge collapsed around it. That is where the bridge once stood. Behind it, you have Baltimore Harbor, the cranes that load those giant cargo ships. All but this one have been going under that bridge without incident for many decades. We have team coverage of this story. We're going to begin with Nicole Skanga. She is near the scene in Baltimore for us in Dundalk, Maryland. Nicole, good morning. What do you see? What do you know where you are?
Tony, good morning. Authorities calling this a mass casualty event, a multi-agency rescue and recovery currently underway. And as you mentioned, a state of emergency declared by Maryland Governor Wes Moore right here in this harrowing scene. The Baltimore fire chief saying as many as 20 people were plunged into the water here, into the harbor, when an outbound cargo ship, the Dolly, collided with a support beam of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and multiple vehicles, including a tractor trailer, also dropping into the water at this time, creating just a chaotic scene for first responders and law enforcement here on the ground. You mentioned the U.S. Coast Guard deploying their maritime teams, but we also know that dive teams have been deployed, that state and local police are on the ground. We've been seeing the cars pass by. You can see some police over my right shoulder here stopping traffic. We also know FBI and ATF are on the scene, and they are working to rescue any and all survivors now, cloaked by darkness and in frigid temperatures of mid-40s. Of course, hypothermia a concern here as well. We expect a briefing to occur around 7 a.m. local, 7 a.m. Eastern time. We know that the governor and the Baltimore mayor are both en route, that the transportation secretary has been briefed here on the situation on the ground. The priority, of course, saving lives, pulling people out of the waters here. But we should note this is a major thoroughfare.
Yeah, and that was CBS News special report last night in the wee hours of the morning. Now, we are obviously following this story very, very closely. And to that end, we have live updates from CNN. Let me check in with that. From 1 hour and 3 minutes ago, that's their latest information. The FBI said the bridge collapse was not tied to terrorism based on current information. The Baltimore field office said there was no specific and credible information to suggest any ties to terrorism at this time regarding the bridge collapse. This was echoed by Alejandro Mayorkas. He is, of course, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Maersk Lines is a company that is Danish. They chartered the Singapore flag container ship Dali, that's D-A-L-I. It collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore early this morning, according to Maersk. The Dali can carry 10,000 20-foot shipping containers, was operating on a route between Baltimore and Asia as part of the alliance between Maersk and MSC, this according to Zanetta shipping market analyst Emily Stausboll. Maersk is one of the world's largest container shipping companies, moving everything from apparel and car parts to electronics and heavy machinery on board more than 700 vessels around the globe. Earlier, we heard from a friend of mine who lives in Baltimore, Tamara Nelson, who also said that Domino Sugar has their big plants there. They ship Domino Sugar out of the port of Baltimore on those very container ships all around the world. The carrier, Maersk Lines, serves more than 100,000 businesses, calls on over 500 ports in 130 counties. This, according to the website, it moves more than 12 million containers every year. Maersk is among the container ship companies that have suspended transits through the Red Sea and Suez Canal because of the ongoing attacks on vessels, including its own by Iran-backed Houthi rebels. It posted record annual profits in 2022, riding high on elevated shipping prices and strong demand for goods, particularly in the first half of the year. It laid off 10,000 workers last year as demand slumped and freight prices plunged. pushing revenues sharply lower. This was the report I was talking about from DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. There are no indications the collision of a container ship that resulted in a major bridge collapse in Baltimore was an intentional act. This from U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. We are closely monitoring the tragic situation unfolding as a result of the container ship colliding with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Our thoughts are with the families of the missing and the injured, Mayorkas wrote on social media. Mayorkas noted the U.S. Coast Guard, which is overseen by the Department of Homeland Security, was on scene, along with our state and local partners actively involved in search and rescue operations this morning. This is some information from CNN. This is their live update. The container ship was inspected 27 times, had 2 deficiencies according to records. The container ship Dolly had been inspected 27 times since its building in 2015, had 2 deficiencies since then. This according from records from the Electronic Quality Shipping Information System, that's called EQUASIS. In June of 2023 in San Antonio, Chile, Chilean authorities gave the Dolly a deficiency for propulsion and auxiliary machinery, gauges, thermometers, etc. This according to EQUASIS records. And in November of 2016 in Antwerp, Belgium, the Dolly was given another deficiency for structural conditions described as hull damage impairing seaworthiness due to it having a hole punched in it. Dolly was involved in an incident in 2016 in the port of Antwerp. That was according to port officials reporting to CNN. The last inspection the Dolly had was on September 9th, 2023. It was inspected by the United States Coast Guard in New York, New York. No deficiencies noted from that inspection, according to the database. Good news, at least on some front. No crew members aboard the ship have been injured. All crew members, including 2 pilots from the Singaporean flag cargo ship Dolly, had been accounted for. There are no reports of any injuries, according to the ship management company, Synergy Group, in a statement this morning. The company also said there had been no pollution as a result of the incident. Baltimore City Fire Chief James Wallace told reporters earlier they have not confirmed whether there had been an active fuel spill from the vessel. We do have odors of diesel fuel, and that could be from the very serious backing down of the ship as they tried to avoid a collision. If you see this particular video, you'll note that all power was lost. The entire ship went dark, then came back up, and then went dark again as it hit the bridge. This is WBAL television breaking news reporting. They are looking this over, and this could be a good way of resetting the story. Let me get this to you as we join WBAL television, channel 11 in Baltimore.
Something that we've seen in Baltimore before.
I don't think you can.
There's no comparison.
No,
like,
there's no
just,
comparison. No.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like they're starting, maybe I'm reading into this, to have an idea of exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, at least, you know, we heard about the power outage like Deb
Right.
was saying. We've heard about the cars on top. And Deb, there's a lot of discussion if there were flashing lights and maybe those were the construction workers. We know about it veering off course. We know the thing is up to code. And then I think you explained to us earlier, Deb, about an incident with the same ship in 2016,
in the past,
a year
right.
after hitting the water. So
Something similar happened, but fortunately was not as disastrous.
yeah, it's interesting to see the puzzle sort
Right.
of come together.
I don't know about you guys, but I also feel like just to hear out of the gate from the FBI really gives you a sense of the reality of our world.
Yeah.
That from the beginning of this accident, that the FBI was dispatched and, of course, came to the podium there and said that that this is not terrorism, that it's just a terrible accident. We know. We also want to. The governor who apparently was on his way to Boston, who obviously changed course, was very emotional. I thought, I don't know if you guys had that same read. He was very emotional. We want to take just a listen to some of what he had to say at this news conference that was shortly before 10 o'clock this morning.
But Maryland, we will get through this because that is the Maryland spirit, and that's what Maryland is made of. We are Maryland tough, and we are Baltimore strong. So in the face of heartbreak, we come together. We embrace one another, and we come back stronger. That's what we've always done. That's what we'll continue to do. And that's what we're going to get done together. and we're going to pray for Baltimore.
Governor Westmore there clearly feeling the moment as he got that call in the middle of the night, as we all got that call that the Key Bridge had collapsed really before our eyes. So we are expecting another news conference probably later this morning, I believe. I don't know if that's what you guys heard.
Yeah.
But clearly there'll be updates throughout the day, guys.
And the governor, Mindy, what was the line? Maryland.
It was very good. Maryland tough and Baltimore strong. There'll be T-shirts.
Yeah, you'll be seeing
I'm
that.
sure you'll be
see a
seeing
lot of that.
that slogan. And
that's WBAL television in Baltimore doing their reporting on this particular story. And that was Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, who was speaking in an emotional fashion. This is something that you always wonder, is it going to happen again? And naturally, when there is a structure in the water and there are ships in the water, it is only a matter of time before those two come together at some way. I lived in New Orleans, and the Huey P. Long Bridge that goes kind of the other way out of New Orleans as opposed to the Greater New Orleans Bridge was hit by a ship. These things happen. And the only thing that we can or cannot do is just thank our absolute lucky stars that this happened in the middle of the night. Now, we certainly do have extreme worry for the crew that was working on the concrete on that bridge. We are extremely concerned about their welfare. That is a very, very cold night in Baltimore, Maryland, on the seashore. I mean, it's right there in the ocean, and it's much colder next to bodies of water, as you know, especially large ones. And it was in the 40s. And the water temperature was probably close to that or maybe just slightly above that. But either way, you don't spend an awful lot of time in water that cold. I was wondering whether or not any of those workers would have the actual time to be able to swim from where they were to, say, for example, the shore. And hopefully these guys were wearing flotation. I can't imagine that they would not be, being that close to the water. But we are certainly worried about that bridge crew. And from what we just heard from WBAL television, it appears as though that they were flashing lights at the bridge of the ship, trying to get it to stop. The Dali, D-A-L-I, is a huge ship. It is one of those gigantic container ships. And if you have seen those, maybe you feel the same way I do. How do those things ply the oceans without tipping over? And it is just one of those things that is, a mystery of naval architecture. But this is a huge ship, and there was no possible way, once it veered off course, there was no possible way for it to be able to avoid that bridge. Indeed, with the power failure, you wonder whether or not any of the actual controls, any of the ship's control mechanisms were actually even functioning. You wonder about this. Now, there have been people saying, why doesn't a ship that big have why doesn't it have a tugboat? And what about the pilots? Fortunately, the pilots are still okay, so there will be certainly a conversation with them as to what happened on the ship. And pilots work for the harbor. They don't work for the cruise lines themselves, or cruise lines or shipping companies at all. They work for the harbor. They know the harbor more intimately than the back of their hand. And so there will be more information about what happened with this ship and what happened as it careened into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore in the middle of the night last night. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. My telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments on this Tuesday morning as we roll through what is an horrific story, indeed being called a mass casualty event in Baltimore, Maryland. Back in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low Cost Airlines.
With one call to Low Cost Airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. John David Wells at your service. Our telephone number 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. We've been paying attention to our chat room. 1776 John says, looks like the cargo ship lost power twice before hitting the bridge. Pilot dropped the anchor prior to the ship hitting the bridge. From the video, you could also see black smoke coming from the ship's exhaust, obviously trying to back down that ship. And many people who have, that I've been in contact with regarding just exactly what the capabilities are of a container ship 1,000 feet long. We're talking about a container ship that is longer than a United States Navy aircraft carrier. It takes at least a mile to back that ship down into a situation where it is motionless. And something tells me it's even longer than that. Seems like the electrical plant went down. They were able to get it back up. It went down again. Maybe there was a fire in the plant. We don't know that. You know, we're trying to figure that out. A little bit of speculation, as always, with breaking news. You wonder why things are unfolding the way they are, and certainly that's the case here. Yvonne brings up something that is it crossed my mind. There were two things that crossed my mind. Thing number one, is this a terror attack? That's the first thing crossed my mind. Currently, there are denials of any of that happening, and those seem to be cogent to me insofar as there were two harbor pilots on the ship. Unless they are part of a terrorist conspiracy, which I doubt very sincerely, it's not going to happen. So hopefully that is correct. The other thing I thought about is what Yvonne brings up. I'm not saying that Mayorkas is wrong about a terror attack, but sadly, I simply don't trust a word coming out of his mouth. And that is what happens when you indeed do lose your credibility. Once you've lost your credibility, it's gone. Let's see, an artificial island. Rick Weaver says an artificial island can and should be built on both sides of each pillar to prevent accidental bridge strikes. That could be something, but when you're talking about a 1,000-foot long ship, that's an awful lot of island. And remember, this is a waterway. They are not necessarily very wide. They're approximately 50 feet deep from what we understand. And so that's the depth of the water in that particular area. But the question is, how big would that island have to be? Now, it wouldn't take a whole lot of imagination to determine like an arrowhead shape with big rocks, etc. But the rocks would have to be very carefully chosen. They can't be so big that they put holes in the ship. On the other hand, they have to be heavy enough as from a mass standpoint to be able to deflect a ship going through the span. And that's a great idea, Rick, and I appreciate the idea that you bring it up. And I'm certainly sure that people are going to start thinking about that, because this bridge is important. It will be rebuilt. It took 5 years to build it the first time, and so it will be rebuilt at some level. Will it be different? So let me get back to live breaking news coverage. 6 construction workers remain missing after the Baltimore bridge collapse. And again, no sign of terror involvement in this. From USA Today, a massive search underway today for 6 construction workers who were on the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore when it was struck by a large cargo vessel and collapsed into the Patapsco River, shutting down a critical artery for East Coast shipping. James Wallace, the chief of the Baltimore City Fire Department, said at a news conference that around 1:30 a.m., a vessel leaving the port of Baltimore struck the Key Bridge, causing it to collapse in seconds. Footage shows the cargo ship smash into one of the columns before the bridge snapped and tumbled into the water on top of the ship, where a burst of flames and smoke could be seen rising into the night sky. Several vehicles were on the bridge at the time of impact. They were plunged into the Patapsco River. There were also multiple contractors on the bridge who were repairing potholes. This, according to the Maryland Transportation Secretary, Paul Widefield. It's unclear how many workers were on the bridge when it collapsed. Wallace said two people were rescued in the initial hours of the search. One was unharmed. Another one remains in very serious condition, he said. The crew that was on the ship when it collided with the bridge remains on the vessel, which needs to be assessed for damage before rescuers can board it. A senior U.S. official told USA Today the ship apparently lost power a few minutes before striking the bridge. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said in a news conference, preliminary investigations indicate this was an accident and not an intentional act of terror. He did not provide any further details. And that is the USA Today rendition of what has gone on in this story. If you are waking up with us and you're wondering what all the hubbub is about, a 1,000-foot container ship that was chartered by Maersk Lines of Denmark hit one of the stanchions that holds up the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and it collapsed. And they said in this article from USA Today, they said that the bridge collapsed in seconds. I saw regular time video of that. That bridge collapsed in less than a second. I mean, it came down fast. It was hard to believe how quickly it came down. And so we're waiting for more information on that as we watch this story like a hawk. Obviously, we need to know what happened. And obviously, there are people that can indeed tell us what happened, specifically the pilot crew on the bridge of the Dali, D-A-L-I. That's the name of the ship. They were cruising through the inland waterway toward the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and something horrible happened. The pilots will know exactly what that is, and so at some point, so will we. The Wells Report continues with hour number 2 next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That's not news. Commentary is opinion. Opinion is what you think. It's what you think. It's what I think. And so let's compare those opinions and debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. If you're just joining us, an amazing event last night in Baltimore. A container ship that was chartered by Maersk Lines of Denmark lost control and hit one of the pillars holding up the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. It collapsed in less than a second. There were people on that bridge. They were repairing potholes. It happened in the middle of the night. The wee hours of the mornings at like 1:30 in the morning, thankfully. Had this happened during rush hour, we would be telling a completely different story. Not that this one isn't horrific enough, but it is something that is truly horrible and has huge impact, not just on Baltimore, not just the people that were on the bridge, not just commuters, but indeed the entire world. A number of automakers. This is, by the way, the latest from CNN. This is their live update column that they keep updating. This from 4 minutes ago. A number of major automakers, including General Motors, Toyota, the Volkswagen Group, the makers of VW, Audi, and Bentley cars and SUVs, use the Port of Baltimore to ship vehicles in and out of the East Coast of the United States. With the Port of Baltimore closed, automakers will now work to find other ports to bring vehicles into the U.S. and ship out ones that are manufactured here. GM, for instance, exports vehicles to South America and America through Baltimore. Our thoughts are with those who are affected and the Baltimore community, GM said in a statement shared with CNN. We expect the situation to have minimal impact on our operators. We are working to reroute any vehicle shipments to other ports. John Lawler, the Ford chief financial officer, said in a Bloomberg television interview that Ford is rerouting auto parts to other East Coast ports. He said the situation will lengthen the supply chain just a little bit. Truck traffic disruptions could cause issues even for automakers that aren't directly affected by the port issues. Volkswagen shipping facility in Baltimore, for instance, is on the eastern side of the bridge and so continues to have access to the ocean. Last year, we received, processed, and shipped approximately 100,000 vehicles through the Port of Baltimore for U.S. dealers located in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. We do not anticipate any impact on vessel operations or vehicle operations, but there may be trucking delays as traffic will be rerouted in that area. Indeed, we spoke with Tamara Nelson Falstich, who lives in Baltimore, and she said that there are a couple of different ways to get around Baltimore. One is the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The other are tunnels. The thing about the tunnels is that they're not necessarily very tall. There are trucks that cannot make it through those tunnels because, indeed, their trailers are above the height restrictions on those tunnels. And so this is going to have a major effect on traffic, with, indeed, trucks not being able to essentially drive through Baltimore. They're going to have to go around it, and that will cause added expense for just about everybody. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is also heading to Baltimore. This from 12 minutes ago. Buttigieg spoke with Maryland Governor Wes Moore and Baltimore Mayor Brandon M. Scott following the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This, according to a post from the secretary on X. Rescue efforts remain underway. Drivers in the Baltimore area should follow local responder guidance, detours, and response officials, said Buttigieg. Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul Whitefield said in a news briefing this morning that authorities are searching for an alternative transportation option for the approximately 35,000 people using the bridge every day. Tens of thousands of people use that bridge, noting that they will be directing people to use the two major tunnels, the Harbor Tunnel and the Fort McHenry Tunnel, also spoken of by Tamara Nelson Falstich, a friend of the broadcast and a Baltimore resident. 5 vehicles have been found submerged in the water. This, according to the Baltimore fire chief. Authorities have been able to find 3 passenger vehicles, a cement truck, and a 5th vehicle submerged in the water using infrared and side scan sonar technology. This, according to Baltimore City Fire Chief James Wallace. Up to 8 dive teams were in the water performing search and rescue operations. He's not sure if the 5th car is a passenger or work vehicle. It's the dynamic of an incident like this, operating in a space of uncertainty. It just makes things difficult. Add darkness to it, it becomes dangerous. Singapore, where the vessel was registered, will launch an investigation into the ship that crashed into the bridge. This being announced 18 minutes ago through CNN. Singapore's Maritime and Port Authority, the MPA, announced it will launch an investigation into the container ship Dali, D-A-L-I, and the bridge collapse in Baltimore, Maryland, according to a statement from the MPA on Tuesday. The Dali is a Singapore-registered vessel. This, according to the Port Authority. The MPA said it's in contact with the U.S. Coast Guard, will provide full cooperation to the Coast Guard in its investigations, according to the statement. And then from 26 minutes ago, 6 people are still unaccounted for after the bridge collapse. This is what is known about that. Kind of a reset by CNN staff. Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed early this morning after it was struck by a 984-foot cargo ship, a little larger than a typical nuclear aircraft carrier operated by the United States Navy. Here's what CNN knows. 6 people remain missing. Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul Whitefield confirmed 8 people were on the bridge at the time of the collapse. 2 people have already been rescued. One's in the hospital. The other is fine. The search continues for the other 6. Drones and sonar used in search operations. Authorities are carrying out a search and rescue operation using sonar and infrared technologies as well as drones, according to officials. So far, they have identified vehicles submerged in the water, as we just reported. Baltimore branch of the FBI is on the scene. However, Baltimore police chief said there were no indications of terrorism as a motivating factor. The ship lost power before the crash. Video shows that moments before the 1.6 mile long 4-lane bridge crumbled into the water after the ship struck one of the bridge's pillars, there was a moment where the ship's lights, all of them, flickered on and off. It veered off course before hitting the bridge. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said the crew on the ship were able to issue a mayday before colliding into the bridge, which allowed the authorities to stop incoming traffic from going onto the bridge. Boy, that's a big one. The ship was chartered by Danish shipping company Maersk and was carrying their customers' cargo, according to the Danish shipping company talking to CNN. The company said no Maersk crew or personnel were on board the vessel. It said the ship Dali is operated by the charter vessel company Synergy Group. Whitefield and authorities, Whitefield, of course, the Maryland Transportation Secretary, searching for alternate transport operations for all the people that are using the bridge every day. And indeed, those people that have trucks that are too tall for the tunnels themselves. And so they will be finding ways around that, probably using the Harbor Tunnel and the Fort McHenry Tunnel. This from 35 minutes ago. The insurers of the Dali container ship involved in the collision with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore early today are working closely with the ship manager and relevant authorities to establish the facts. This according to a statement from the Britannia P&I Club, according to those people this morning. With head offices in London and Luxembourg, Britannia P&I Club provides protection and indemnity insurance and freight demurrage and defense insurance to ship owners and charters, according to the company website. Britannia P&I Club added it's working to help ensure that its situation is dealt with quickly and professionally. In the meantime, our thoughts are with everyone affected by this incident. And this is more on the Mayday call from 38 minutes ago. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said the crew on the ship were able to issue that Mayday before colliding into the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which allowed authorities to stop traffic from going onto the bridge. The governor said, we're thankful that between the Mayday and the collapse, that officials were able to begin to stop the flow of traffic so more cars were not on the bridge. Amazing. It collapsed almost instantly. It's certainly that entire bridge and that entire center span is somewhere around a half a mile long, and it hit the water in less than a second. I mean, it was so fast, I thought maybe I was looking at sped up video, but it went down in a hurry. Authorities are redirecting commuters to the tunnels, according to the transportation chief. So we're watching this story very, very carefully, and we will continue to. There will be another press conference coming up. As soon as we find out more about that, we will direct you to it here on the Wells Report. And again, we want to say thank you very much for joining us as we get through this particular day. Trying to catch up on some other events of the day. Julian Assange was handed a favor by the United Kingdom courts today. The British judge has cited comments Donald Trump made about WikiLeaks in a 2010 interview. I think there should be a death penalty or something. A British court ruled that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will be able to appeal his extradition to the U.S. to stand trial on spying charges, unless the American authorities can show whether he might face new charges carrying the death penalty and to what degree he is protected by the First Amendment. Unless satisfactory assurances are provided by the U.S., we will grant leave to the appeal, the court ruled, citing Assange's right to free expression. The chance that he could face prejudice on the basis of his nationality and the possibility he could face execution will all add into the decision by the British courts to whether Julian Assange will be sent to the United States under extradition orders. Assange's wife, Stella Assange, blasted the ruling for not just outright blocking the extradition. I found it astounding, she said to reporters. This is a case of retribution. It's a signal to all of you. If you expose the interests that are driving war, they will come after you. They will put you in prison. Now, it doesn't take a whole lot of imagination to realize that a lot of these people, including Donald Trump's point of view about death penalty and so on and so forth, ignores the Pentagon Papers released by Daniel Ellsberg in the 70s. Now, whether there was espionage involved in the Pentagon Papers case, that was never definitively established. But as there is in the case that we have here, Julian Assange received those papers through espionage. And the question is, okay, that being said, is he a reporter? Is he reporting on the story? He came across this information. Is it okay for him to report? In many cases from previous years in the United States and elsewhere, it doesn't really make any difference where that information comes from. You have the right to publish it if you are indeed a full-on journalist, and Julian Assange asserts that he is. And everybody has their own policies. For example, I've told you on this broadcast, if I come into the possession of classified information, I'm not going to report it here. I'm not. I'm going to contact the authorities. I will have a conversation about whatever is in those reports that someone might hand me, but I'm not going to report them until I have a chance to find out whether or not there is anything newsworthy in those documents. Just having them, and there were newsworthy things in the WikiLeaks that we saw. There were newsworthy. That changed the way the entire American population looks at their government. It's true. It was damaging. And yes, is this that government looking to try to punish Julian Assange up to and including taking his life? Yeah. But is that the right thing to do or not? I remember asking on the broadcast, I said, is Julian Assange a hero or a traitor? And there were great discussions on both sides of that question. So Julian Assange in the news. We've got more to come up in just a couple of moments, including a very interesting decision by the Supreme Court of the United States. We are bringing you the news as we do Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. Following the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, Maryland, we'll have more details on that coming up in just a couple of moments. There was a Supreme Court decision, which was a non-decision. In a 2019 video that went viral, there was a young man who was confronted by a Native American. His name was Nicholas Sandmann. he was vilified in the mainstream media. Vilified. He was wearing a Make America Great Again hat, and thus was treated like, well, a redheaded Trump child. And it was absolutely awful. It was unacceptable at any level, whether it was, just loose talk at a bar, for crying out loud. It was outrageous. And I'm really concerned about this Supreme Court decision. Yesterday, they declined to hear the case of a former Kentucky high school student and supporter of Donald Trump who said he'd been the victim of cancel culture after a video of his interaction with an elderly Native American man went viral in 2019. That decision leaves in place a lower court's dismissal of a massive libel lawsuit filed by Nicholas Sandmann against Gannett. Gannett News operates USA Today and other media organizations for their coverage of the incident. Sandmann argued he was defamed by their reports on his confrontation with Native American rights activist Nathan Phillips at the Lincoln Memorial in January. A video of Sandmann, then 16, and a student at Covington Catholic in northern Kentucky, standing nose-to-nose with Phillips, went viral, unleashed a firestorm of internet criticism that the student's conduct was racially motivated, which Sandmann denied. Phillips was attending an Indigenous Peoples March while Sandmann was walking in a March for Life event. Sandmann filed lawsuits against 8 media organizations, including the New York Times, ABC News, CBS News, and Rolling Stone magazine, seeking a combined $1.25 billion for their coverage of the event. A federal judge in Kentucky dismissed the suit in 2022, ruling that Phillips' statement that Sandmann blocked him and wouldn't allow him to retreat, as reported by the media, was Phillips' opinion for which they could not be sued. The Cincinnati-based the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that judge's dismissal. In Sandmann's unsuccessful petition to the Supreme Court, his lawyer said the case has come to epitomize the high water mark of the cancel culture. Sandmann, his lawyer said, was transformed from a quiet, anonymous teenager into a national social pariah, one whose embarrassed smile in front of Phillips became a target for anger and hatred. That happened because of the media's careless failure to investigate Phillips' description of the encounter, according to his lawyer in court. He's got a real point there. He does. And when you're starting to talk about defamation, and you're starting to talk about all the things that go with a civil lawsuit, it seems somewhat tone deaf to me, either in the case of the civil judgment against Donald Trump for a finding of sexual assault. It seems kind of strange that a kid who was absolutely lambasted in the mainstream media in front of everyone by an untold number of news organizations, all based on politics. Why would it be that Nicholas Sandmann can't prevail in a $1.25 billion lawsuit against those news companies, and Donald Trump can be taken to the cleaners by E. Jean Carroll? It means that there should be something that, I don't know, brings consistency to civil law, don't you think? It seems really odd to me that someone who is obviously defamed can find no solace and no judgment on the part of the news media organizations that did that to him. And yet E. Jean Carroll can walk away with almost $100 million. Drives me nuts. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We've got more of the Wells Report coming up in just a couple of moments on this amazing Tuesday morning where a ship knocks down a bridge in a major American city. Back with more in a moment.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real. with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. An horrific scene. A ship, a 1,000-foot long or close to 1,000-foot long container ship, collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge last night in the wee hours of this morning, in fact, and took the bridge completely down. It went down so fast I couldn't believe it. Everything that you see, all of the video that you're going to see is video that is in slow motion. And the bridge comes down in a leisurely fashion. But the actual unslowed video is amazing. We're keeping our eyes on it. As a matter of fact, there are tugboats at this particular moment. It looks like they're being dispatched. Let me give you just a little look at WBAL television live coverage of this event as we saw some tugboats headed toward that ship. There are clearly updated videos, and let's listen to the reporter currently on the scene.
All right, Tommy, thank you. And you mentioned the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. We're just learning at the invitation of Governor Moore. Buttigieg will travel to the site of the Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse today to receive any updates. We're also learning more about that noon press conference. We hear that the chair of the NTSB, I believe, will be there as well to help brief the media. That'll be at noon. Again, this will all focus on the collapse of this bridge that we've been seeing occur since about 1:30 this morning. I'll get the folks to remind me again where we headed, and I'll go there if you tell me. Kim Dacey, she's been in Dundalk. She's been speaking with families there throughout the morning.
All right, so that is the very latest. We now know that the next press conference is coming up at noon today, and we will see what we can do about bringing you some of that information here on the Wells Report. Joining us, a first responder. This is a guy that I have had the privilege of working for and with for years. He is Gary Olivier. Gary, thanks very much for joining us. You're a former New York cop. You took part in the rescue operations, the recovery operations during 9/11. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So what went through your mind when you saw this amazing infrastructure destruction from this container ship and the Francis Scott Key Bridge?
Well, just a little bit of background. When I was in the harbor unit in my department on Long Island Sound, I hold a United States Coast Guard captain's license, Master of Oceans, 100 gross ton. Granted, a lot different from the size of those container ships, but just a couple of things on those container ships. When they get inland, they pick up what is called a harbor pilot. The harbor pilot takes over the vessel from the captain, brings the ship into port, inland, if you will. Now, it's just, this is very suspicious. It was either a horrible navigational error or whatever, but as close as, from what seeing from the video now, from where I'm sitting, as close as they were to that bridge, even if they had not lost power as supposedly happened, there's no way that if that vessel didn't lose power, it would have been able to turn into the navigable channel. It was headed right toward that piling. So once again, that's a real gross navigational error on part of the harbor pilot or whoever was captaining that ship, or it's an on purpose. I mean, it's that simple. There's just no way that should have hit that bridge if it was, in the navigable channel and on course.
Gary,
judging by how close it looked like it lost power and when it was close to the bridge.
Gary, let me ask you this question. All of these ships have unbelievably good GPS navigation, and we noticed that there was a power failure shortly before the collision with the bridge. I think you probably saw that. We don't know whether there was another one before the ship began to veer off course, but there certainly was one after it had veered off course. The lights came back on just before the ship hit the pilings. When you're thinking about this, and I'm sure that there were two harbor pilots on the bridge. They were not relying on GPS and automatic pilot, were they? You wouldn't think that would be the case, would you?
Well, basically, if I could just circle back real quick, and granted, I was I had an inland license, and whenever we train people to do our navigation, we made sure that they knew how to do it the old-fashioned way, between landmarks, navigational aids such as lighted buoys and other things like that. And then we would put them on the GPS, because if you just learn off a GPS and that goes out, you're in trouble. So what is happening is these harbor pilots and anybody else who holds a captain's license, they're using both. They're using their landmarks and they're using their electronic navigations, radar, etc. That's why I just find it real hard to. I mean, that ship should have been way to port, and I think they were off course. They made a mistake, and that shouldn't happen between your visual navigation, the old-fashioned way, and your electronics on board. Even if the electronics went out, you should have been on course, and you could still go in based on your visual navigations.
Do you have any idea what might cause a ship-wide power outage, especially on a 1,000-foot container ship? That seems very odd to me.
John, like with airplanes, there's a lot of backup systems and things like that, and unless it was a total failure of the power feeds, coming off the diesels, the diesel generators and things like that, which, there's usually, a couple of backup systems where if one fails, the next one is going to relay switch right to the other one, to put it in layperson's terms. Or somebody pulled the plug on the whole thing, sabotage. I mean, it's just, and once again, I'm just skeptical about the course that they were on prior to all this happening.
Right. So the harbor pilots in charge of the ship as they clear the port and so on. No one on the ship was injured. They are apparently still on the ship, even though there are tugboats that are being dispatched to move the ship apparently to a pier.
Yes.
And so the interrogations are going to begin relatively quickly. The Achille Lauro, for example, the crew left the ship while it was on its side in an inlet after a foolish move by their skipper. And so it's not like we're not going to have a complete array of findable evidence on this. Have you ever been through?
Not at all. Not at all. It's going to absolutely. And yes, you are required. Any accident like that, involving maritime fight. I can't quote the statute verbatim, but you stay on board unless there's the imminent threat to life, such as it's sinking or it's on fire. You stay on board, and they start you right from there. It's like a crime scene. You work from the closest to the crime scene out. It's the same thing with these maritime and NTSB investigations. Same thing.
Gary Olivier is our guest. He is joining us. He has a Coast Guard captain's license and has spent an awful lot of time regarding police work on harbor units, certainly in New York. Gary, as we look at this, one of the first things out of people's mouths was, this is not a terror event. Now that makes sense, because 2 harbor pilots would have to be involved in that particular scenario. And so do you concur that it's probably not a terrorist issue, or are you somewhat concerned about that as well?
Oh, of course, especially since 9/11, and the life I led for 30-something years of basically not trusting anybody, and always looking way into things and overreading things. There could be a terrorism nexus there. There could be a foreign government. This is all part of starting to wreck our infrastructure. I mean, there could be. Hoping that it's just a terrible, terrible accident, a terrible navigation error, and a series of events that just exacerbated that navigation error, leading it to hit the bridge. Such the power going out and stuff. So let's hope it's just a bad mistake and a terrible accident.
Indeed. Gary Olivier, thanks very much for joining us and lending your expertise to the Wells Report, as you always do. It's always great to hear from you.
And thank you for having me.
You bet. That's Gary Olivier, Coast Guard captain, joining us on the Wells Report to discuss his perspective on this. And as all of this unfolds, and there will be information, we will hear a lot about this. It's quite possible that we might even get the whole story, if indeed it's shared with us, on this particular issue. And I certainly hope that that's the case, because I believe that certainly we, the people of the United States, and certainly the people of Baltimore and Maryland, need to know exactly what happened here. And I hope we don't start seeing, some maybe we don't want to tell the story because somebody will look badism that we have seen in the past. This is the Wells Report. There was something interesting coming out of the country of Mexico. And I looked at it with chagrin, shall we say. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, warned over the weekend during an interview with 60 Minutes that unless the United States complies with Latin America's requests for aid, the tide of migrants will continue. In January, Obrador issued a series of demands for what the U.S. must do to stop the flow of migrants across the border, ranging from sending Latin American countries $20 billion in aid every year to granting some level of amnesty to illegal immigrant workers in the U.S. Mexico has reportedly taken state-level action to curb mass migration at President Biden's request, making crossings drop, however. The number of migrants began to rise again in February, with the Border Patrol expecting another surge in the spring, which is where we are now. Everybody thinks you have the power in this moment to slow down migration. Do you plan to? This, according to 60 Minutes correspondent Sharon Alphonsus. She asked the president, "We do and want to continue doing it, but we do want to address the root causes for them to be seriously looked at," according to a translator interpreting Obrador's response from Spanish. Alfonsi noted that Obrador's demands for the U.S. to send $20 billion a year to Latin American countries, lift sanctions on Venezuela and the Cuban embargo, and legalize millions of Mexicans that are living in the U.S. are likely not going to happen. The correspondent, Ms. Alfonsi, said, if they don't do the things you've said need to be done, then what? And then Obrador responded, the flow of migrants will continue. Now, you know me. I am not a diplomat. That's putting it mildly. I'm not a diplomat. After this ridiculous interview on 60 Minutes, I would close the border from one end to the other. International ports of entry, everything. Close the border down until the president of Mexico reevaluates his statements. That the president of Mexico is the leader of a country that is taking part in the chemical attack against the United States through his country, indeed, fentanyl being manufactured in his country from precursor chemicals brought to him by China. That he takes part in that is enough for me to break off diplomatic relationships with Mexico and close the border. Close it. That's enough. Over God knows how many Americans, some 200,000 Americans have died of fentanyl poisoning. And it comes from Mexico. That's problem number one. Problem number two, well, we got this cartel issue. They've been essentially bringing drugs into the United States and creating countless episodes of mayhem below the southern border. I mean, in Mexico, you know, I'm not even going to bother going to try to describe even part of it at a certain level because you can't. It's savagery. It's just plain savagery. And so that's been going on. And now we have a situation where the president of Mexico is saying, hey, you don't do this, these migrants are going to keep coming. There's no reason for a country that makes you go through handsprings to get into Mexico, if you happen to be from America. There is no reason whatsoever for those people coming from Central America to cross the southern border of Mexico without governmental intervention. And that is exactly what's happening. Now, I don't know exactly what's happening with Obrador, but you know what I think? I think he's on a cartel payroll. That's what I think. I think that the entire government of Mexico is on a cartel payroll. And I think that the best way to stop that from being an issue for both Mexico and the United States is for the United States to simply close the border and leave it closed until when you start talking about demands, or if we close the border, nobody from Central America crosses the border. No fentanyl crosses the border. No commerce crosses the border. No sex traffickers. No human smugglers cross the border. Read terrorists. And it gives Mexico an opportunity to say, okay, guys, you screwed over America long enough. He's talking to the cartels. And now there is no way for you to continue it because the border is closed. And yeah, I put military guys on the border. Speaking totally for myself here, I put military soldiers on the border. And yeah, if somebody tried to cross illegally, something else would happen than what we've ever seen before. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in a moment as we continue on Tuesday morning, the 26th of March.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We have been talking about the amazing story coming out of Baltimore, Maryland, having to do with the destruction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The Francis Scott Key Bridge no longer exists. It was hit by a container ship and it tumbled into Baltimore Harbor. It's gone. And fortunately, the loss of life that you would expect to deal with something like that was nowhere close to being realized. There are some 6 construction workers that are currently being looked for, and we've been dipping into coverage from WBAL television, Channel 11 in Baltimore. Let's do that again and see what they have to say regarding this. There should be a press conference coming up at noon.
Just in front of me there. That is where that should be happening, and we will bring you that update as we receive it. For now, back to you guys.
Thank you, Tommy. And that included in that update is NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy. I said that correctly. She's going to be leading this in next press conference. Hopefully, maybe we'll have some more information.
And they've been very precise. If there's a question they can't answer, they don't. And I think that's good. I think that keeps the speculation down. But what we do know is that it is a day that definitely has changed lives.
Absolutely.
Today, since about 1:30 this morning, and we went on the air about 4. So, and you know, the scene hasn't changed much, but the number of people have responded, the response from different governments, the response from other countries, like this is the worldwide effect.
Absolutely.
You didn't realize.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. This is a world event. It involves a gigantic shipping company, Maersk Lines, and it is the infrastructure issue is plain. I mean, a gigantic ship, nearly 1,000 feet long, is the prime author and prime mover behind the destruction of one of America's most beautiful bridges. The Francis Scott Key Bridge is just gorgeous. When I was young, we used to travel around the country. Certainly not with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It's only been in existence about 5 years, but we would go across famous bridges for the simple fact that we wanted to be able to have enjoyed those amazing pieces of infrastructure. And many people have said, we heard it earlier this morning, that people look out their windows and they see the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and that's part of the reason why they have those very expensive high-rise condos. But that view's gone. It's absolutely gone. We're going to keep our eyes on this story and bring you more of it as time goes by. There is something going on right this minute. Hackers tied to the Chinese government have targeted high-ranking U.S. politicians, businesses, and critics in a years-long scheme to attack critical pieces of America's infrastructure, according to federal prosecutors, in an indictment of 7 foreign nationals. White House officials, U.S. senators, defense contractors, journalists, and technology companies were among thousands targeted in the cyber operation, according to the Justice Department. The United Kingdom also announced sanctions today, or yesterday rather, against a state-sponsored company which it alleges was involved in an attack on Parliament's email in 2021. This case serves as a reminder of the ends to which the Chinese government is willing to go target and intimidate its critics, including launching malicious cyber operations aimed at threatening the national security of the United States and our allies. Monday's announcement comes 2 months after the Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Christopher Wray warned Congress that Chinese hackers were preparing to wreak havoc on American infrastructure, such as the electric grid and transportation systems. I'm not saying that all of this goes together, but let's see. A U.S. is announcing sanctions against that Chinese company. The Department of the Treasury announced that they would put sanctions against Wuhan Jiaruji Science and Technology Limited. That's a front company that China's Hubei State Security Department used as a cover for cyber attacks by a hacking group known as Advanced Persistent Threat 31, or APT-31, according to federal prosecutors. The more than 10,000 malicious emails that defendants and others in the APT-31 group sent to targets often appeared to be from prominent news outlets or journalists and appeared to contain legitimate news articles. That's disinformation practiced by professionals. The malicious emails contained hidden tracking links, such that if the recipient simply opened the email, information about the person or agency, including the location, internet protocol address, IP addresses, and network and router information, was transmitted to a server controlled by the hackers. Yeah, we're going to have to do something about cybersecurity. 2 of the 7 people charged in the federal indictment were also sanctioned. Zhao Guanzong and Ni Gaobin were behind the high-profile malicious cyber attacks, according to the Department of the Treasury, including the 2020 spear phishing operation against the U.S. Naval Academy and the new U.S. Naval War College's China Maritime Studies Institute. I just looked up how much money the United States owes China. It's somewhere around $898 billion, little less than $1 trillion. You know, with this hacking operation tied to the Chinese government, you know what? That number is now $500 billion. Yeah, it's going to cost you $398 billion to steal our secrets. And if you protest, we're going to start charging you for the other espionage that you've committed against the United States. And every time you steal something from us, It's going to cost you money. And then when we finally get rid of all the debt that we owe you, any other espionage is going to be paid for in tariffs. It's time for the United States to use the weapon that it has that is the most, absolutely the most effective. And that is economic power. It's essential that we do this and stop playing handsy-footsie with these people. I want to thank Gary Olivier. I also want to thank Tamara Nelson Falstich for being a part of this broadcast. God bless you and yours, and we'll see you again tomorrow. All righty then. I'm sorry I didn't get to the chat room much today. Let me go over there and say hi before we go. Let's see here. Not saying that Mayorkas is wrong. We read that on Artificial Island. We talked about that. After 9/11, transportation took on a whole new look. Air, rail, highways got a new look. I'm certain that shipping did too. Now they're going after infrastructure, said Mike R. Yeah. So we had a biological attack. We have a chemical attack. We've had cyber attack. And now are we moving to kinetic attack? Is that what we're doing next? Let's see. The total span is 1.6 miles. I was talking about the actual superstructure that all collapsed. You know, that beautiful, graceful steel curve affair at the top. I was talking about that. And that's about a half mile long. If indeed the bridge is 1.6 miles and it's about 2/3 of the bridge, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. Replying to Ivan, he's a piece of garbage at best. He must be talking about Mayorkas. Yep. Gannett is a leftist communist rag not fit to line a birdcage floor with. Don't Mexican politicians get enough money from the cartels? Now they want to get $20 billion from the sock puppet? Sure. All these socialist governments that are chasing their own citizens right out of their countries, you know, this is how they fund themselves. They become a pain in the butt to the United States. They say, hey, we need aid. The aid's supposed to go down there to help the people that are crossing the borders into the United States trying to find a living. And most of that money goes into their pockets. And every time they want more money, they just do that. And yes, Mexico realizes that, and Mexican politicians have to realize that a lot of that $20 billion is going to come right back to Mexico in the form of payoffs so that those people will profit from it. Close the border completely. Close it for 30 days. Stop everything. Take the political damage. My God, if we don't have this truckload of trinkets, our entire economy will collapse. That's what people will say. And you go, okay, well, we might as well do it now. I mean, we're $34 trillion in debt. Better to handle it on our own than to wait for it to come from outside. I'd literally close the border for 30 days. And if I heard whining and crying and threats and bellicose garbage, with every statement made by a Mexican politician, I would leave the border closed 5 more days. Every single one of them. Now, you can say whatever you want to behind closed doors as we try to work our way out of this. And same story with all these leftist politicians. My God, it's racist. Every time they mention the word racist for closing down the border, it's going to be closed another day and a half. Every single time. We're going to count them up every day. We're going to multiply that by 1.5, and we're going to add that number of days to the time that the international ports of entry are closed. And that'll be that. You know, politicians have played around with this border, and I'm talking about from both sides of the aisle. Politicians have been playing around with this border for a long, long time. 50 years, maybe? Okay? It's time to take the ball out of their hands. It's time to take the ball out of their hands and say, okay, you guys want to, so we need to pay Central America $20 billion, huh? Well, the border's closed, all right? And sorry, that's going to be that. Oh, no, the entire border. Everything's closed. Nobody goes into Mexico. Nobody comes out of Mexico for 30 days. Period. And a lot of this stuff, indeed, the stuff that Mexico is dealing with these damn cartels, you know, that would be that. You know, the message is this. Oh, by the way, got good news for you there, Obi. Got good news for you. Here's the good news. We're going to open up the border, at least the international ports of entry. We're going to open up the international ports of entry so that all that trade can go through again. That's the good news. The bad news is that if you don't get control of those cartels, we're going to close them down. We're going to close the border down again. We start seeing fentanyl crossing the border, et cetera, closing down the border again. And we're just going to leverage you into manning up and taking care of those cartels. And I know it's going to cost you a lot of money because those guys pay you a fortune. But guess what? America is more important than your particular personal financing, courtesy of drug cartels, which should be terrorist organizations. They act like terrorist organizations. They kill Americans like terrorist organizations. Why aren't they terrorist organizations? Okay, let's see. Mexico is trying to say we, the USA, are responsible for the fentanyl production, not Mexico. Yeah, that was part of that interview too. Yeah, the reason that we've got fentanyl, because Mexicans never take fentanyl. No, we don't take fentanyl in Mexico. We just ship it to the United States, and the United States takes it all. Really? So you're taking part in the chemical attack against the United States as well? Okay, border closed. You sassy bastard. If you don't do this, the people will continue to come right across the border into the United States. No, they won't. Border's closed. Oh, by the way, don't get near the border. Don't get near the border. Don't do it. Don't do it because we will stop you and it will hurt. Let's see. He says the Mexican president claims that the majority of fentanyl product is produced in the U.S. Okay, that's fine. But there's certainly part of it that's produced in Mexico. That's the part we're closing the border because of. There you go. Let's see here. Okay. Now, look, I got one more thing to say while I have you here. I will very likely not be on the air tomorrow. There's something up in the air. I will put it up on Facebook so that you guys know one way or another. But I'll probably be off tomorrow and maybe Thursday. Okay. So I've got this little assignment that I got to do, and so I may be gone for a couple of days. But I will let you know on Facebook, and there you go. All right. So once again, watch Facebook and watch Twitter, and I'll put it out in all the usual places. Okay. God bless you and all yours. Take good care of yourselves. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast, and we'll see you again, I think, on Friday. Probably going to be on Friday, and watch social media. I'll let you know. Okay. I know, Gary. I know. Buck up, buddy. You can always call me on the phone because you have the secret number. Yeah. And I will give you a personal rendition of the Wells Report just for you. All right, got to go. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow or not. back when I'm back, and I'll let you know on social media. Take good care. Be safe. Make good decisions. And I'll talk to you later. It's okay, Gary.